Okay, so I want to talk about why the Big Bang is unworkable and fallacious. And I'm just gonna state before I start this that the Big Bang Theory stands in clear violation of physical laws, celestial mechanics, and common sense. So let's take it uh, point by point. Um, and although sounding simple, just as you would find in a science fiction novel, that's all it is, science fiction. Um, okay, first, the Big Bang Theory is based on theoretical extremes. It may look good in math calculations, but it cannot actually happen. A tiny bit of nothing packed so tightly together that it blew up and produced all the matter in the universe. Seriously now, that's a fairy tale. It is a bunch of armchair calculations and nothing else. It is easy to theorize on paper. The Big Bang is a theoretical extreme, just as is a black hole. It is easy to theorize that something is true when it has never been seen and there is no definitive evidence that it exists or ever happened. Let us not mistake Disneyland theories, however, for science. Second, a vacuum has no density. Um, the Big Bang has been described um, as emptiness being fled from the vacuum of space, then rushing into a super dense core, having um, um, an extreme amount of density and heat, um, which is a lot of density and heat for a gigantic pile of nothingness, especially when we realize that it is impossible for nothing to get hot. And although air gets hot, air is matter, not an absence of it. Um, Air has a weight. Uh, and um, it is said that nothingness got very dense and that's why it exploded, but a total vacuum is the opposite of total density. Um, and uh, one of the um, main campaigners for this idea was a man by the name of George Gamow or Gamow, Gamow. Um, he was one of the originators. No, he was one of the advisors of the Big Bang model. It originated with George Lemaitre, a Belgian, in 1927, but in 1948 it was uh, devised by George Gamow, R.A. Alpher, and R. Herman. Gamow was a well-known scientist and science fiction writer that gave it its present name and then popularized it. Um, According to the theory, I'll get back to the points in a second, but according to the theory, there was no matter, just nothingness. Then this nothingness condensed by gravity into a single tiny spot, and it decided to explode. And then it goes so on to say this is what produced, stars, planets, moons, everything, and everything else in this universe, basically. Um, and Gamow came up with the scientific answer for the superdense core that was created. He said it came as a result of the big squeeze when the emptiness made up its mind to crowd together. Then, with true scientific aplomb, he named this solid core of nothing Elam. With a name like that, many people thought this must be a great scientific truth of some kind. In addition, numbers were provided to add an additional scientific flair. This remarkable lack of anything was said by Gamow to have a density of 10 to the 145 power g divided by cc, I think that is, or 100 trillion times the density of water. Then all that packed into blankness went boom. Uh, and let's go on to the fourth point here. Uh, there would be no ignition to explode anything. No fire, no match. It could not be a chemical explosion, for no chemicals existed. It could not be a nuclear explosion, for there was no atoms. Fifth, there is no way to expand it. How can you expand what isn't there? Even if that magical vacuum could somehow be pulled together by gravity, what would give then, or what would then cause the pile of emptiness to push outward? This quote unquote gravity which brought it together would not, or it would keep it from expanding. Nothingness can produce heat, or nothingness cannot produce heat. The intense heat caused by the exploding nothingness is said to have changed the nothingness into protons, neutrons, and electrons. First, an empty vacuum in the cold extreme of outer space cannot get hot by itself. Second, an empty void cannot magically change itself into matter. Third, there can be no heat without an energy source. Seventh, the calculations are too exciting. And by the way, I just went over the 6th point. Too perfect an explosion would be required. On many points, the theoretical mathematical calculations needed to turn a big bang into stars in our planet cannot be worked out. In others, they are too exacting. Knowledgeable scientists call them too perfect. Mathematical limitations would have to be met, which would be next to impossible to achieve. The limits for success are just too narrow. Most aspects of the theory are impossible, and some require parameters that will require miracles to fulfill. One example of this is the expansion of the original fireball from the Big Bang, which they placed precisely within the narrowest of limits. An evolutionist astronomer R.H. Dick says it well. If the fireball had expanded only 0.1% faster, the present rate of expansion would have been 3 multiplied by 10 to the third power times as great. Had the initial expansion rate been 0.1% less, the universe would have expanded to only 3 times 10 negative to the 6th power of its present radius before collapsing. At this maximum radius, the density of ordinary matter would have been negative 10 to the 12th power grm divided by m to the 3rd power over 10 to the 16th power times as great as the present mass density. No stars could have formed in such a universe, for it would have not existed long enough to form stars. That's from R.H. Dickey, Gravitation and the Universe, 1969, page 62. Eighth, such an equation would have produced not a universe but a whole. A man by the name of Roger L. St. Peter in 1974 developed a complicated mathematical equation that showed the theorized Big Bang could not have exploded outward into hydrogen and helium. In reality, St. Peter says that the theoretical explosion, if one could possibly take place, would fall back on itself and make a theoretical black hole. This means that one imaginary object would swallow another one. Ninth, there is not enough antimatter in the universe. This is a big problem for the theorists. The original Big Bang would have produced equal amounts of positive matter and negative matter, which is antimatter. Positive matter is matter, negative matter is antimatter. But only small amounts of antimatter exist. There should be as much antimatter as matter if the Big Bang was true. I'm going to quote here Isaac Asimov from his New Guide to Science, page 343. Since matter and antimatter are equivalent in all respects, but that of electromagnetic charge oppositeness, any force, uh, for example, the Big Bang, that would create one should have to create the other, and the universe should be made of equalness or equal quantities of each. This is a dilemma. Theory tells us that there should be antimatter out there, and observation refuses to back it up. Then I'm going to speak a quote from Victor Weisskopf, The Origin of the Universe, American scientist, 1971, page 479. We are pretty sure from our observations that the universe today contains matter, but very little, if any, antimatter. And then reason 10. Um, the antimatter from the Big Bang would have destroyed all regular matter. This fact is well known to physicists. As soon as the two are produced in the laboratory, they instantly come together and annihilate one another. So those are 10 reasons why the um, Big Bang is unworkable and fallacious. And I'm going to make a second part um, mentioning what would happen if it actually had occurred. Um, so I hope this has been enlightening and a fruitful audio, uh, audio. I don't know if I can't call it an audiobook, but hopefully this is a good MP3 that I have created to listen to, and it was informative and was a blessing. But anyways, God bless you. Have a great day. I'll work on part 2 really soon.